Welcome to Last Week in Warframe, a series where I keep you updated on the past week of Warframe by compiling all news, announcements, and general posts by the developers from forums, Reddit, Twitter, and even their live stream. Timestamps to each topic as well as their sources are in the description, so without further ado, let's go over these announcements and news from the 24th to the 29th of February, starting with a combination of Devstream 139 and the Review, Revise, and Refresh Developer Workshop. Now there are a number of timestamps on your screen to each major portion for this video, but for the most part it's just the information from the Devstream and the workshop compiled as best as I could. First up, Operation Scarlet Spear. It is planned to release at some point in March, and alongside more lore we'll have another prologue for the new war, possibly upon login. After that, in April, we'll receive the Deadlock Protocol Corpus update, but before all of that, they'll release a giant mainline update on PC first as early as this week. Now this video goes over armor, health, and shields, infested damage, enemy AI aimbots, shield gating, self-damage, excavator health and shields, Titania and Vauban, rewards, UI changes, Arcane changes, new restore blueprint, Sentinel modding, 100% status chant and its effects, status mod buffs, grenade markers, Liches, their fixes and murmurs, deferred rendering, field of view, and HDR rendering. Now in regards to the Arcane changes, I have to link to my other video on that because if I added it to this, it would be way too long for a Last Week in Warframe episode, so if you want to know the information for Arcane changes coming with the mainline update, go check out the video. There is a link in the description of the video and a card on screen that'll take you right to it. But as for DE's reasoning on the upcoming changes, they said, Warframe always aims to become a better version of itself. Year after year, we completely change things, from melee last year to movement years ago, and so on. Enough systems have accrued to make our choice over the past 3 months a simple one. Review, refresh, and revise. We aim to reflect on aspects of the game that have gone untouched while addressing fundamental inconsistencies in the mechanics of the game. Warframe is still about power and you being a destructive force in the Origin system with hundreds of tools at your disposal. Warframes have never been more lethal or powerful than they are in the current version of Warframe. We do not aim to reduce that across the board, but we do aim to let that power stand on consistency in our design. Starting with Railjack, DE will be reducing the cost of building your Railjack via the Rising Tide quest by 66 to 75% alongside reducing the crafting time from 12 hours to 6 hours, after review with the stats. For players who have already built their Railjack via the quest, you'll receive all invested resources on top of 2 rush repair drones. For players who are in the process of building your Railjack, you will get 1 rush repair drone and will transition to the new cost on the next stage, plus any old resource costs will be refunded. For players who have yet to start the quest, they'll have the new build requirements without bonuses. Now over 45 Railjack bug fixes will also be coming in Scarlet Spear, and I will read out those when the patch notes go live, so I'll just leave a showcase of those fixes up on your screen right now. In regards to bugs, Steve said that they have changed some of the management on how they fix the game, and he also mentioned that they're working on allowing a selected number of players access to a test cluster during time-limited windows, but that won't be ready for Scarlet Spear. After they shared the information on Railjack and bugs, we're now at armor, health, and shields. Now at the moment in-game, enemies' armor, shields, and health scale on an exponential curve, as we've known for years. But with a mainline, they'll scale on an S-curve.
The blue line is the current exponential scaling.
So this is what happens right now with armor on an enemy. So level 100 enemy in the game has this much of an armor value, which multiplies its EHP. So
these graphs are made quickly, but this is the how you can see it scales up.
Yes.
And there's no end in sight. Up and up and up it goes.
Now, the segment that I'm hovering now has a slight of an S-curve to it, as you can see here. Instead of it being a straight up rising ramp, it is a curve that in the lower levels, you can see a lower value, and then once you get to that crossing point around level 75, it starts to taper off. So this blended S-curve is what the new math will be determining an enemy's armor value with level.
And health and shields also follow curve style, only the tail of the S is, the slants are changed. Yeah, the tail of the S would basically, for armor it stays flatter, for shields and health it will be steeper. So to make them a little bit more important as they scale up. Warframe is a game of diversity, and there's 40 plus Warframes and hundreds of weapons and hundreds of mods, and limiting it to a very small subset that actually can deal with the high-end stuff is wrong. So this should allow a higher diversity of build to be viable in the end game.
They also share that enemy damage will remain close to the live build, but for the infested, they've increased the damage output. Players will also have their own unique shield, health, and armor type classified as Tenno. Now, at the time of the dev workshop, Tenno have all weaknesses and resistances neutral, but player shields will reduce 25% of incoming damage. Our shields will also recharge faster if partially depleted. Specifically, it will take 1 second, but if all shields have been depleted, the recharge will take 4 seconds. Shield gating will exist and apply to both players and enemies. Shield gating will provide a moment of invulnerability to your health when your shields are destroyed, preventing an instant kill shot from occurring. And any damage from a high damage shot that breaks your shields will not carry over into your health. As for the enemies, they will also receive the aforementioned shield gate. Plus, any shot you deal to an enemy with shields, 5% of the weapon's damage will bypass onto the enemy's health. You can bypass the shield gate completely by landing headshots and hit weak points. Warframe abilities will also bypass the enemy shield gate. DE stated that both the goal here is to make shields a mechanic that you want to play against with mods or to bypass with skill. Giving both friend and foe shield gating has two purposes. We want to reward skill a bit more in all Corpus missions and give the squishier frames a bit more viable edge and a chance to really explore shield focused builds. Toxin damage and status effects are still your best friend against Corpus and shielded enemies. When it comes to player damage with these new changes, DE have changed how specific damage types affect armor and shields. The slash status effect won't bypass shields and instead will deal damage over time to the shields, but the effect of the slash status effect will continue to bypass armor. The toxin damage used to apply to armor with a 25% bonus. It will now be neutral, and they stated for role distinction, toxin bypasses shields, but not armor, whereas slash status bypasses armor, but not shields. DE's reasoning from the workshop about the aforementioned changes follow. For years, Tenno have had the tools to deal with things, but the tools were uniform, use corrosive projection or else. While this is a simplification, it removed the feeling of choice. With these changes, we hope the players experience a feeling of variety and choice when taking on enemies. By changing the scaling for armor, we could consistently change the scaling for all. Now, enemy AI accuracy will also be changed, but I thought the devs commented on it a lot better than the dev workshop brought the information across.
When we originally obviously launched the game, the AI levels were kind of between 0 and 30 as a baseline for testing and balancing. That's kind of what we were looking at. Over the years, that's grown quite substantially, but the data remained kind of clamping the aiming and the aggro system we have for AI from 0 to 30 basically. So we separated out the aiming from the aggro, we spread it across up to basically level 75, and we dropped the very high end aim down slightly so that they're not so accurate and so quick to get that high end accuracy.
There's still the factors of are you moving, are you jumping?
Yes.
That mobility factors into how likely they are to miss as well.
I think like a level 75 Elite Lancer with the aim graph going, standing completely still has about an 80% chance to hit you. If you start moving, that percentage dramatically falls depending on which parkour move you're doing and the velocity you're moving, at the distance you're moving, all the way down to 0, so they'll still completely miss you.
The other fix I saw go in related to this was the burst weapon stuff.
Burst multi-shot weapons were the second and third shot were basically guaranteed hits.
Yep, perfect aimbot.
Perfect aimbot.
Didn't even check the aiming system.
So the hard pack, it's an enemy burst weapon, the burst and
So you can imagine those the AI types that use burst weapons and be like, oh, okay, that's why.
Self-damage. Self-damage is also being removed completely. However, this won't mean that you can fire willy-nilly without issue like the old Toncore. DE are introducing a stagger effect that occurs when you're within the blast radius. The stagger effect will vary based on range, and players will be able to control it via self-interrupts. Getting extremely close to the blast will cause a full knockdown, and as you get further away from the initial impact, you'll stumble. Self-interrupts will need to be timed right in order to negate the stumble, so new animations have been added to reflect your interruption of the stagger. Scott also mentioned that we'll be able to double jump and dodge out of recovery if done correctly. Mods that affect self-damage will be changed to affect the stagger, and Scott mentioned in the case of Cautious Shot that it would reduce the stagger state. So rather than ragdolling, you would get knocked down and it would just go down from there. They will also increase the damage of explosion weapons that will proc the stagger by around 20%, and they have added fall-off damage from ground zero. So the closer to the initial impact you get, the more damage will be dealt, and the further away, of course, less damage. Simply put, Chroma will no longer be able to increase his buffs via self-damage. As for DE's reasoning from the post in regards to self-damage, they said, Self-damage had a lot of drawbacks for weapons, resulting in flow-disrupting death. This stagger replacement system favours agility with a less harsh consequence, while allowing some of the most powerful weapons in the game to remain that way due to their unique consequence. Weapons with self-damage will be converted to this new system. As a result, self-damage is removed from Warframe. Now DE will be adding incentive to increase your status chance above 100. They said, when you hit a status chance greater than 100, a single damage instance will be able to create 2 status effects. This means if you have a shot with 200% status chance modded with both blast and toxin damage, that single shot will result in both status effects. In addition, multiple of the same status proccing twice on a single unit will get added bonuses, such as double impact resulting in a knockdown effect. More information on the double effect with the other statuses in the game will be in the patch notes. They did not share it in the workshop. DE are also making multi-shot have its own stat in the arsenal to clean up discrepancies with stats and make it clearer the bonuses you get. Now, while looking at status, DE finally got around to changing how shotguns are affected by status. They shared their reasoning alongside the changes.
Yeah.
First,
Yeah.
we were talking about over 100%, which then very quickly opened the crypt of status on shotguns is completely and utterly busted.
Yes.
So we also pulled the crypt keeper out and the dust and fixed that problem as well.
I think this one is also going to be a bit of a contentious change, but very necessary. Shotguns act weird, and at the very top end of status act completely super weird versus any other weapon type.
Because the UI was always a sort of indication of not what was really happening. If you had a 99% shotgun status value on your weapon, it would look a little something like this. So on live, the red line is basically status on your shotguns did basically per pellet, not too much until you reached 100%.
Yeah.
So 99% would basically translate into per pellet was about 37-ish%.
Yep.
And then as soon as you got that 1% more total, you jump from 37% per pellet to 100% per pellet.
Yep.
So it was all or nothing with shotguns.
That was
So
it.
the mid-range status shotguns were basically utter trash, and anything that could achieve over 100% was basically god tier.
Yeah.
And so the green line is as Moses intended, which is a linear status chance for every pellet that a shotgun or trace or projectile shotgun's sending out. That is what the status chance
Would look like.
should have been.
This is not the case. This is not what we're changing it
This
to.
is status
Yep.
divided by number of pellets.
Divided by number of
Not some
pellets.
weird probability math under the hood.
So it's a huge nerf.
But
We don't like huge nerfs.
But we don't want to do huge nerf. So if we go to the next one, you can see what we've done is 3x the status chance on all shotguns
yes.
across the game. And you can see that we've made the linear curve not only better in the low end and mid-tier cases, much better than it was before, but also intersecting where the math kind of broke and skyrocketed. The really interesting thing that the multi-status change does and how it interacts with shotguns is, unlike a single damage event, even though, say, you may be on the blue graph there, you might have a 50% chance per pellet, you could actually double proc in the same frame on one enemy, or you can shoot and get really lucky and proc everyone that's in the cloud of pellets. So the multi-proc change, the way it interacts with shotguns makes them kind of more variant. I'm very curious how this change is going to play out. So we fixed the math, and then we've buffed all shotgun status by 3 times.
Yes.
To reflect that, status mods will be updated. So Rifle Aptitude, Melee Prowess and Sure Shot will go from 15% status chance to 90%, and Shotgun Savvy will increase from 30 to 90. Excavators will, as the mainline, scale their health and shields to the same formula as mobile defense terminals. Their shield regeneration will be a % of health versus a flat value to deal with scaling shields. Their reasoning for that follows. This change will bring excavation in line with existing mission types that have scaling properties after several years of having flat values. True to our initial goal of fixing inconsistencies, we are making these mission objectives scale in a consistent manner to other mission objectives. The mainline, as previously stated, will also include the previously covered Titania changes, such as Spellbind self-casting via holding down the cast, Tribute receiving a gear wheel just like Ivara's quiver, Lantern will keep affected enemies in place and will no longer move around, and Razorwing will receive an effect update and controls will reflect Skywing. The mainline will also include a buff to Vauban's armor from 50 to 150, with Vauban Prime going from 100 to 200. Rewards will also be cleaned up for base missions across the star chart, which means they are going to remove low endo counts but keep the high count relevant to the star chart node. The example provided was that of the Memphis node on Phobos. They'll remove the 500, 100, and 1500 credit cache but keep the 2000 credit cache. The same would follow for endo drops. They'll remove the 15 and 50 endo and keep 80. This is more of a review and cleanup for some of the less rewarding aspects of missions. Right now, the base solar map nodes exist to progress from planet to planet, while providing either general rewards or specific return rewards. By getting rid of the lower value items on the general rewards, people playing for the first time should come across a bit of a bump in their resources and credits. We have more plans for this to write about at a later date. UI changes. UI changes will be coming, such as the previously mentioned item labels on by default, avionic and intrinsic screens no longer using hold to confirm being added to the revive screen to avoid accidental aborts. When you're dead in mission, the HUD will remain. The market and item viewing dioramas will have expanded information instead of being hidden. A forge all button will be added to the payload screen, and controller scrolling improvements will be coming. New restore blueprints will be added to the respected dojo lab research rooms, and these blueprints will allow us to make stacks of 100 restores, but the research will consist of Railjack resources, as DE wants to give another use to the resources you pick up. Sentinels will also be able to use the same mod that you're using without confliction, because in the current build you can't use the same serration on your Sentinel that you're using on your weapon. Grenade markers will also be added for better indication, and you can shoot it before it explodes. For those with colorblind concerns, Pablo shared that the grenade will pulse from white to red with a pulsing ring effect. Melee attacks will destroy the grenades for those wondering. Scott and Pablo commented on grenades being stuck to players and rolling not removing them, but Scott said sure to rolling removing. In showing off the grenade shooting on Twitter, Pablo also shared that Season 3 of Nightwave will have a weapon augment mod, possibly for the Yak Magnus. For Kuva Liches, Murmur progress from failing a Lich Parazon stab will be shared with the entire squad like it was before as a bug, so that bug is now back as a feature. They also said that they have bigger plans for connecting Liches to other systems, but this was the only one ready for the mainline update. Numerous changes and fixes will also be coming to the mainline for Liches, and that's up on your screen. Once again, I will read them once the update goes live. HDR preview will also be coming to PC with a mainline, and console presumably when the mainline comes to console. Deferred rendering preview will also be coming, and a field of view increase will come to the max value of 90. The current in-game build is 78. Rebecca was using Ash Deluxe in-game for those that have been looking forward to that. It's unknown if it'll be a part of the mainline update, but just keep an eye out on that. The mainline will also add the ability to shoot through Nova's wormhole and have the bullets or projectile go through the portal to the end portal's location. As shown by Rebecca and Taylor on Twitter, and as commented by Scott in the Devstream, you can see them using the lens to shoot through the portal and it goes straight to the end of it. Lastly, for the Devstream, they shared some information on how Operation Link and the base operations for Operation Scarlet Spear will function.
Yeah.
There's Scott. You're at your desk over there, I guess.
Look up, look up, look up. Ooh, there he is.
All right, so things are happening with Scarlet Spear. This is the test flotilla on Dev. We have our team in here working away, and you can see...
Oh, you can see log tags.
Log tags,
Yep.
But there are people taking on the Railjack side of the
There's
operation.
there's your Railjack.
Actually, there is my Railjack.
Oh, that's your Railjack out there.
The Earth side. So you can participate in the ground mission or the Railjack mission. Space squads, you're connected. You're constantly passing data back and forth to take on Operation Scarlet Spear. The more you play, you can come visit Little Duck. Do you want me to talk to her?
Yeah.
So, we got lots of info coming there. That'll be launching Operation Scarlet Spear, but everything we've talked about today in the 20-item agenda is going to be shipping before the operation itself. So the revisions will come first, then the
Scarlet Spear.
to follow.
Yep, right after.
DE will be delaying the announcement of TennoCon tickets due to the coronavirus, following other events like GDC and PAX, as they'll be waiting for more information before announcing ticket sales. To close the Devstream and developer workshop they also shared. You've made it to the end and it bears repeating. Warframe always aims to become a better version of itself. You may realize something after reading. Warframe's meta might change, but if you've been here for a while, you'll realize something else. Warframe is always changing. Warframe is still about power and you being a destructive force in the Origin system with hundreds of tools at your disposal. Next up for the recap, Warframe crossed over with Super Smash Bros. Ultimate as they added Lotus as a spirit. I don't know what that means, but yeah, it's available to acquire up until the 4th of March at 1 AM Eastern Time. And lastly, to end the recap video, Taylor shared that they have updated the files for Gauss's Tenogen to include a triangulated FBX for both his open and closed flat versions. Anyway, that concludes this episode of Last Week in Warframe. If you found the video informative, make sure to leave a like. If you think I can improve upon the series in any way, shape or form outside of sharing my own opinion, make sure to leave it in the comment section down below. If you want the channel glyph, they are up on your screen. There are 5 codes per platform. If one is not able to be used, it has already been redeemed by another player as they are one-time use. If you missed out on last week's episode, there is an annotation on your screen. It'll take you right to it. Thank you for watching and I'll see you guys next time.